My name is Kat from Owling Dog. I love creative arts and restoring old furniture and other items. The time you spend watching this channel is appreciated. I hope you subscribe and like these videos, which helps circulate the content. Feel free to drop a comment. All of these are appreciated. Well, let's go see what's in the barn. This is the piece that I'm going to do this week. Now, the more I looked at this piece, the more broken pieces I found. Really big fractures. It almost looked like they let this drop down the stairs because it was literally broken on both sides, more on the right than on the left. But it was separated so that I had to clamp the entire piece side to side to get it to fit back together. Now, if I had a chunk of mahogany, that would have been my preferred method of repairing this. This is not the best way to do it. I just didn't. I don't have the wood, and I wanted to get this piece done, so I just chose the best way that I knew how, and that was actually filling it with some wood putty. Not the greatest, but at the end, it works. If this piece was in better condition, there might have been some other things I could have done with it. It was a nice piece at one time. Beautiful mahogany that somebody just didn't care for. Whenever I see these little sideboards, the legs are always chewed apart. I mean, this is the type of furniture that, how often are you going to use it? I know it's old, but it looks like someone is kicking it and chewing on it. And I mean, what the heck? And they're all like that. So I'm going to mix my own color. I just played around with a couple of samples that I have. These are Benjamin Moore wall paint samples. One is baby turtle, no, I'm sorry, dragon's breath, and the other is baby turtle. So you can see that that's almost a, in my view, it looks like a greenish taupe, and this is a grayish brown, so a darker taupe, really. And then I have some calcium carbonate. I'm going to make my own chalk paint. I'm not going to make a thick texture. I just want the chalk paint to be, to have that consistency. So I think it goes better on wood furniture. So yeah, let's mix up those colors. I'm going to keep it in a Tupperware. That's usually what I do. I just keep these old food containers and mix my paints, and it will last a while. So let's mix it together. All right, so I want to make sure that I have plenty of paint. Oops, got a little goopy stuff here. And this one is the dragon's breath. Now I don't want to start with a lot because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. Okay, so I'm going to do a bit of sanding and cleaning. I'll let this dry a few hours It's dry though. It's very hot, not too humid, so everything dried pretty quickly. And I will do that off camera because it's kind of boring. Now this piece looks like mahogany to me, and mahogany is a big bleeder, and I don't want it to bleed through to my paint, so I'm using 2 coats of shellac spray, just a clear spray, and this usually works out really well for me. I just give it a good spray. I've got my hand going, and yep, I'm going to give the whole thing a couple of sprays, and it'll dry pretty quickly. I'll just go over it with a little bit of sandpaper. What I did off camera was some sanding and cleaning up that I didn't show. But here, yeah, I'm just doing the spray shellac. I love what the calcium carbonate does for the texture. It just feels dry and thicker than the regular paint. And it goes on really well. And with the shellac spray, I don't even get a hint of bleed through. I use really thin coats. I'd rather do a few thin coats than put on a thick layer of paint. It's just the opposite of when you're painting a wall. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't get really great coverage on the first try, but that's okay because the second coat is going to be really, really good. And with the second coat, I might use a little bit of water once I get to that point. I wanted to put molds on it, and I didn't have anything that I liked. Um, I just don't have the right kinds of molds. And it's like anything else, they're expensive. So, I mean, I have probably 5 or 6 little silicone mold designs, but I don't know what made me buy the ones that I bought. They're all very similar, and they're just not that useful to me. I think when you first start buying molds, it's like anything else. You really don't know what you're going to use and what you're not going to use, and I just didn't know what to choose. Now that I've done them a lot more, I realize I could use a lot more of the like fern-like vine type of flowers that I think would be really pretty. Um, but I don't have anything like that. The only one I have is the bellflowers, and I just didn't think they would be right for this. So I'm going to end up either doing transfers or doing some hand painting. But I have some special enhancing that I'm going to do with this color, so it should be really pretty. So, so I'm back to do a second coat on everything, which I'm not really going to show. But what I wanted to show was that I am going to use my brush from yesterday, and I'm going to go over it with a foam roller because I get really nice finishes on the tops when I'm doing paint on the top, which is tricky. So I'm going to sand it just a little bit of light sanding with probably 300 or 400 grit sandpaper, and wipe it down, and then do this second coat on the top of the roller. Oops. Well, let's start on the left. And I think you can see that. Let me grab my French linen and a little jar of the Dragon's Breath. I have 2 chip brushes and a blending brush that isn't horribly shedding. So I'm going to water down my brushes. And I have a little towel here for wiping my blending brush when that gets saturated. So yeah, let's see what happens. Let's first put some of the, start right here. And it looks like there's like junk in this paint. It's kind of driving me crazy. And the blending brush, it's a little bit damp. One thing I didn't do was put any calcium in the Dragon's Breath. So let's do that, because it looks like it's going to have trouble blending an acrylic to a that calcium bond. And so I need the bonds to be the same in both. So let's do that. We are doing a little bit of blending. So I have the Dragon's Breath, which is the dark, kind of a dark clay, with the mixture, which is the dark clay and the light clay. And to me, it's a version of French linen. It may not look that way in the camera, I'm not really sure, but to my eyes sitting here, it's that French linen kind of look. It's a taupe, it's a very nice earthy color. And yeah, so I'm going to highlight the details with some of the Dragon's Breath, and I'll do a little blend, and we'll see what happens. I'll see what happens. Now the two colors are blending because each has the same base, that calcium carbonate. You can blend acrylic paints together, but it's really difficult and they don't take water well. So putting a little bit of the calcium carbonate into it is that works for me. I'd like the way that works. Spraying my blending brush a little bit, wiping it down. I'm just spraying right here. I add a light coat of the base color and the darker gray, blending into the details until I feel like the lowlights are what I want. Remember that if you use a lot of paint on the surface and then manipulate a brush over it, it's possible that you'll remove the base layer. In chemistry, like dissolves like, so if you keep adding a lot of fluid and brushing over it, you may lift your other layers of paint. I've done this and it's inconvenient. Just be patient, use an optimum amount of paint that you can blend together and don't overwork it. I also end up using the darker gray as a glaze on some of the details by applying it and wiping off the excess. It comes out really nice. So now, if you didn't like that much distressing or highlighting or low lighting, you can always add more paint. So there's no really wrong way to do it. What I am going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more stressing right there. And yeah, see if I can highlight those details a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to hand paint some florals, and I've done them on the other sides just to kind of figure out what I'm going to do. So I'm using, you know, a tapered brush, an angled flat edge brush, and a filbert. This is kind of small. This gives you a lot of control. It has short synthetic bristles, and they're all synthetic actually. Even this one is synthetic, but it's nice though. It's nothing fancy. And that I can do most everything with these. Most everything. I do a little bit of detail with a, it's almost like a liner, but it's not very long. It's not a super long liner. It's just a pointed, you know, tapered brush. I have some water that's kind of, I've been using it. And I rinse off my brushes often, you know, and I keep them wet and I wipe them off. All right, so I'm going to start just very loosely. I'm going to just put down some florals. And I'm just kind of going to go over the front. I'll add in a few leaves. So I'll start off with this tapered brush. And I'm going to grab some red. I'm going to see if I can just, let me see if I can show what I'm doing. So I have some red. I'm going to pick up some yellow. A little bit of different color yellow. Some white. A little more red. I just, basically, it's a reddish, pinkish, peach background. And you can see that I have a lot of color on there. I have a lot of heavy paint. Make sure that my brush is visible. So I'm going to start somewhere over here, and this will probably be my main flower. I'm just going to I'm just putting down and picking it up. I'm going to actually put my palette down because it's too hard to work with it on my lap. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to choose some red and some yellow, and I'm going to just place a few down. Now this is a background. Sometimes I go in and I put the backgrounds, and then I go back and I do some details over the flower itself. This one I think is looking that way. I might try to draw them so that they're a little different, not draw, but paint. And I'm leaving the petals so that there's a spot in the middle. What I can do is I can put some depth in there and then just kind of brush it in with my finger. So I'm going to go for some more white and some yellow. I'm just putting the brush down and picking it up. I'm squashing it down and picking it up. And I'm always working toward the center for the flower. Now I'm going to darken the center. And that is add my tiny flowers to the legs. So I'm going to do just another one in the front here. I'm going to try to make it pink. Thank you for watching this week's video. This one was a sideboard that was really, really broken. I had hoped to refinish it, but I didn't look closely enough at it when I was buying it. If I had spent a little more time and didn't get so excited about seeing the, the pretty carvings and knowing that it was very similar to another one that I did not too long ago, I was really excited about buying it instead of taking a close look at it, because after I cleaned it up a little bit, or while I was cleaning it up, I noticed that there were so many broken pieces, and I mean really broken. It was fractured apart so that I had to literally squeeze it back together again. The doors didn't work, and they're still not perfect, but they're good. They're good. Yeah, and so I painted it. I did as well as I could to repair it. It's really a shame that someone would abuse a piece of furniture like this. It was just abused. And it was originally a gorgeous mahogany, I believe it's mahogany, gorgeous mahogany wood sideboard. I mean, really, what do you do with a sideboard? You put a few dishes in it, you have your tea or whatever. It's not like you're throwing it around or your kids are running up and down on it or whatever. I don't know how anybody would just treat a piece of furniture so bad. Anyway, I mixed my own French linen. I love that color, and so I had a couple of Ben Moore samples, and I mixed them together. I'll list all the products below to create a French linen, and then I used the darker sample to do some detail work on it. I also did several coats of shellac. I did shellac right away because mahogany is terrible for bleeding, and I knew I wanted to paint it and I didn't want any bleed through. So that worked perfectly. Never hold back from trying shellac, just right out of the can. It's so easy. It dries almost instantly. You can sand it down, do a few coats if you had to. That's what I did, just to be sure. And yeah, it worked perfectly. I also did shellac on top, and I did clear wax, and I made my own pink sparkly wax, but you can barely see it. It's just a little bit, just for a little bit more detail. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm working on old furniture, and it's really an antique, I'm thinking, I'm not an expert, but you know, at least the 30s, so it's close to being an antique if it's not already. And one of the things I try to always do is to at least put a natural finish before I put any of my own products over it. Natural meaning, shellac. I'll also use lacquers. I love to use waxes.
And all of that can be taken back, even though this is an acrylic paint and the latex paint for the walls. It's like a plasticky. I put calcium carbonate into it, and so that they would bond together, and it will come off really easily. It's on top of the shellac, so if someone really wanted to take it down and bring it back to natural wood, they can very easily. I don't normally use polyurethane on an, especially on an antique piece of furniture. So anyway, I did some glazing and I did some blending. I did hand painting. I recorded this, but I didn't have the camera turned in the right direction. I don't record with the, or I do record with the front-facing camera, which means I can't really see my scenery until I get up and look at it, because I set it up and then hope that I'm still in the frame while I'm working. Anyway, I wasn't in the frame, so I didn't get that done, recorded. Just a little bit of it. I did some detail on these other original handles, and I cleaned them up as best I could and did a little bit of gold gilding wax, a little gilding wax on the hinges. What else? It's not perfect. Sometimes you just have to accept that things aren't going to be perfect, and you just do the best you can. I think someone will really love it. Stay tuned, because I'll put some pictures, staged pictures, and we'll take a really close look at the side and the inside. And yeah, thank you again for watching the video. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. I wish you all good and beautiful things. Thank you.